So my name's Josh Holleb. I'm from Ceres Greenhouse Solutions. We're based in Boulder, Colorado. I've been working in the cannabis industry since 2009. I've been a dispensary owner, indoor grower, and we've then developed this greenhouse that we've been selling for the past 8 years and developing. I work with a partner who's German. He lives in Colorado as well. And our goal has always been high efficiency in growing using sunlight as much as possible because it's what the plant wants and it's the most efficient way to grow as far as operational costs. So I'm going to speak for a quick second about the buildings, what we do, what we think is the most optimal way to grow cannabis. And then Jem will step in and talk about how his group controls the interior environment of indoor grows as well as the greenhouse, but it's quite relevant with our greenhouse and his system. Whoop, back. So real quick, we have a hybrid greenhouse design that I'll talk about, climate control, just very simply. We'll let Jem do that, and then a few featured projects so you get a feel for what it is that we're doing across the US, Canada, and now dive into Europe, Australia, and South America as well. Our goal is high yields, highest quality, and lowest operating cost possible. We see it here. We don't deal with GMP in the US yet, but we will, but we're quite aware of it, and we design our buildings to be able to be GMP certified. But the goal in the end is the highest quality cannabis that we can grow in the United States. In Colorado specifically, cannabis is being grown for about $1,000 a pound is the wholesale cost. And we find that our growers are getting up to $1,500 a pound just because of the quality of the product. So there's a real differentiation to be had, and it shows itself financially if you are growing a really high quality product. We find the sun allows that to happen. Controlling the greenhouse itself is a really more difficult process, but necessary to create this high quality cannabis. This is just a quick slide to show a traditional European greenhouse versus something that we're doing. It's a highly insulated structure. It appears that there's less glazing, but oftentimes there's more light. We allow as much par light as possible and also full UV through our glazings. Unlike an indoor grow, the greenhouses that have full UV have really high quality cannabis, more cannabinoids, more terpenes, more flavonoids. The plant wants UV, and you can see it in the quality of the product that comes off the plant. Our design is, we call it an offset gable. We face them south, but the goal here is that we actually are insulating so we can grow in cold weather climates, whether it's Northern Europe or we are high in the mountains in Colorado. We can still maintain very steady temperatures, but it also allows us to have very controlled, so if it's warm and it gets cold, we don't see fluctuations in the greenhouse. The greenhouse functions very much like an indoor grow room, very small swings in temperature and humidity, but still allowing that natural sunlight. We also have supplemental lighting at all times. We say a worst case scenario, we're an indoor grow, so you have a standardization. Best case scenario, you're full sun, 4 to 5 times more light than an indoor grow would have with zero lighting costs. Part of our design with our south-facing greenhouse and our solid-facing north walls is that we can harvest light. So in the winter, we are low on light levels. Here in Germany, you'd have less light, obviously, than you would in the summer. What our greenhouses can do is if the light misses the plant, if it goes over the plant, it will hit the north wall of the greenhouse and actually bounce back to the plant. So we see growth heading towards the north, which is not normal, but we've designed it to harvest light, to optimize lighting levels as much as possible to reduce operational costs and keep the plants happy. This is an example of a custom greenhouse that we've built in Boulder, Colorado. This is 22,000 square feet or 2,200 square meters. It's broken into 5 greenhouses, 420 square meters each. With an insulated head house that has processing, offices, indoor veg. These things are flexible, but this gives you an idea of what we're looking at. To the left is the south, and so we orient the greenhouses towards the sun. The right side of those structures is north. We insulate them. They can hold heat and harvest light. This greenhouse has 90% light transmission, full UV, and when the sun is out, there's we measure lighting in ppfd for the most part, and there's 2,200 ppfd, whereas the best grow room might say it has 1,000, but maybe it really has 600 or 700. So we really have high light levels in these greenhouses. We're constantly evolving with the glazings that we're using. This is the most important thing. It allows the light into the greenhouse. We work with a Japanese company, Asahi Glass, and have an ETFE offering, which is up to 96% light transmission with full UV. In colder climates, we can do a double layer of that. That gives us some insulation as well as up to 90% light transmission. We work with a German company called Evonik for an acrylic glazing. It has a higher insulation value than traditional glazings, 90% light transmission, full UV. And then for a lot of the hemp growers, we'll use a polycarbonate, which is a plastic. And plastic cannot allow UV through because it would degrade, but UV actually promotes THC production. So for a lot of growers in hemp who don't have the most stable genetics just yet, potentially polycarbonate's a nice option because it doesn't allow the UV through. The buildings are actually quite flexible based on what you're growing and how you're growing. This is one of the most important parts when we get to cleanliness control, is that we keep the structures as smaller spaces. So these might be 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, 300 to 500 square meters, and we'll break them up into multiple units. You can add as many as you want, but this allows us to control biosecurity. If you get a bug or a mold or a mildew or something, we can keep it in one house and it will not spread unless you spread it actually physically yourself. We can also maintain different climates in each house, and that'll be something that Jem can talk about, but depending on strain, we can have a warmer, drier room or a cooler, more humid room, or depending on stage of growth in the flowering process, we can actually allow a younger flowering plant to have a warmer environment with more humidity. And as flowering progresses towards the end, we can actually dry the room out slightly. But it gives us an operational cost advantage because we don't have to cool or dehumidify as much depending on stage of growth. We also do design vented greenhouses. Many of our hemp propagators will vent a greenhouse. It's significantly cheaper to use outside air. For GMP certification, it's actually much more difficult to impossible, but in the States, that's not necessary. If it's all veg growth and there's no flower and we're only working on propagation, a vented greenhouse sometimes can be a good option for cost savings. More and more, though, we are moving towards sealed greenhouses, completely closed environment, minimal venting just for human occupancy, which could be maybe 500 CFM, one fan, necessary just for humans to be working in the space. But for the most part, these are completely sealed environments, high CO2, high light, and very controlled, and we do a lot of our control based on vapor pressure deficit. Again, we can maintain stable temps and humidity, CO2 retention. Odor control is a big thing. If we're building in urban areas or industrial zones, odor can be a major issue with growers, maybe the most difficult issue to deal with. When we seal the greenhouses, we have way less odor problems. GMP certified, high biosecurity because we're not bringing in outside air. What we've seen in the US with the hemp market now taking off is that vented cannabis grows are taking male pollen from outside hemp grows and seeding, which isn't a total disaster if you're processing, but you have less lower quality product and you're making less money. This gives you control, complete control over what's happening inside your greenhouse. And then again, vapor pressure deficit is how we control the greenhouses. I don't know if that many people know about it, but it gives us a range of temperatures along with a ratio, along with a humidity. Temperatures can fluctuate as long as we take humidities with it and the plants don't feel the difference. They can optimally pull water and nutrients through and transpire. Climate control, which controls our light depth systems, our fertigation systems, our heating, cooling, and dehumidification systems are getting very smart. So we work with, we've developed a sequence of operations in our greenhouses. It's flexible. These are software-based controllers. They're viewable on your phone. You can check them. You can even control things on your phone. But most importantly, we track all data in the greenhouses, everything that's happening, every piece of equipment that's on, when it's on, how long it's on. We can see what's happening. And then we can go back and look at that data analyze it, make adjustments moving forward. We can find when we've had a really good harvest and completely mimic that with the same strain, with the same 8-week run of climate controls. And it allows us to really dial in what's happening in the houses. This isn't really a guessing game anymore. We know what's happening and we can mimic it or we can adjust it to make it better. And these are just a few examples. This is a 4,000 square meter or 40,000 square feet hemp breeding facility that we just built in Oregon. Each house has different hemp pollen being thrown. He's producing seed for farmers. The two farthest south houses are climate mimickers. They have light depth and full climate control. So he's in Oregon, but he has a client from Florida. He can grow his hemp in a Florida climate based on Florida daily lighting integral, humidity levels and everything else. A farmer from Florida can come here, step into that greenhouse, and he says, here's your Florida crop. This is this seed grown in Florida conditions. So he can mimic any environment in the world in the greenhouses and show his clients what's happening while in the other 8 houses he's breeding for seed. This is another hemp propagation greenhouse. This is a vented greenhouse. It's the same style, but slightly different. This is at about 7,000 feet of elevation, 2,300 meters of elevation. Year-round growing, cloning, seed breeding, but very controlled and highly successful. And this is an inside shot of one of our newest cannabis greenhouses. But as a little Ceres plug of what we do, we produce in the US, we have manufacturing in Europe as well. And we believe we have the most controlled greenhouse available on the market. Our clients are proving that out every day with incredibly high quality product. The lab results that we get back from the flower that is being produced in these greenhouses is like nothing the lab guys have ever seen. After 8 years, we get this often. We have never seen cannabis like this before. And the biggest thing is what we do is we design a structure, but then we are along with the growers for their hopefully entire lifetime of growing, always learning, always tweaking and pushing. And this is when
babysitting.
Yeah, well, babysitting, but also they learn stuff that we don't know because we're not operating in the houses. So they tell us things. And so now I pass it to Jem, and Jem is more on the climate side, and he can talk about how they're controlling the climate in houses like ours and others.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Raj. Hi, I'm Jem. I'm from Enerama Technologies. We provide environmental solutions to greenhouses and indoor facilities. It's super important what they are doing because the technologies we provide, we depend on the structures as well for them to actually be in great use. So having good isolation and having good design and structure is super important for the technologies to work at their best capabilities inside. So you need to adapt the whole from the structure, the construction, to the end game. Everything needs to be intact with each other, I think. And we also focus a lot on efficiency in energy saving, in light and also in water. And we make sure that there is a lot of redundancy in the greenhouses or in the indoor facilities. We also focus on increasing the yield and the quality of the product. The technologies we provide enables you to grow a whole year, and our background is actually agriculture. And we've been in cannabis this last couple of years. We have manufacturing in Europe, and our office is in Switzerland and in California. And we also filter the air, we cool the air, so everything about the climate inside, we try to tackle it, and our technology enables you to control absolute humidity and control temperature. Without changing the temperature, we can control the humidity. And humidity has a major role in the plants. So over time, it can be very rewarding or very painful to have bacteria and fungi and other moldules. So what we do, we take the humidity out and discharge it, and we also clean the air while we're doing this with our liquid desiccant system. And VPD is super important. Simply put, it's the pressure on the leaf, and the more pressure there is, the less transpiration will happen. And the less transpiration, which is, let's say, sweating the plant, the absorption is also related to all of these. So the absorption will be less, and why designs get good quality crops is because of the absorption rates they get. So controlling the humidity is super important for the plants inside and biohazardness. This is, I'll talk about the patented technology we have. We do mostly closed loop systems, sealed completely. It's very important to have an exhaust and also control cooling and heating and humidity at the same time. These are some designs we have done in Europe and in the States. You can see we do multi-rooms, multi-zone control. So some of the rooms can have different point views. And even in the same room, you can have different machines acting differently. So the end of the room can have a different cooling and humidity level than the beginning of the room. So these are all up to client custom, how they want to grow. You can see more designs. And like I said, we manage air quality. We designed a silencer now because most of the regulations are getting stricter and stricter. So people around, like in Florida and in Zurich, they complain a lot about smell, odor, and they complain about noise. So we try to tackle this with odor trapping in our machines, which is quite hard to do actually, because odor is a molecule as well, and we control water molecules in air. But we've been showing great progress on odor trapping as well. And while we are doing this, we also filter the air, sterilize it, so you don't need extra filters or anything in the greenhouse. I'll keep on going. This is one of the grow rooms we built. So here you can see many air handlers. So all those air handlers can get different comments. And you were talking about data collection. It's super important. All our technology also collects data. So you can learn what hour, how your air circulation was, how much humidity levels you were at, and how much energy you were spending. And you gather all this, and then you can have a better analysis of your climate. These are some of the machines. Our machines go outside, so we don't take space inside. And we are a little more industrial size, so we handle really big places. You can see the silencers on. So these guys odor trap, dehumidify, cool, heat. So it's like a one-stop HVAC solution. We've seen that all the technologies inside a greenhouse or a facility, indoor facility, needs to interact with each other, which becomes a little messy sometimes to use many different technologies from many different companies and try to adapt them all together can cause more risk and problems. So we developed a machine which can provide all of this with just one single brand. We also control the machine, and our systems come with climate control inside. We also can track this through an application and anywhere from the web login. And you can also control any other electrical devices inside through our software, which is provided, comes with the technology. And we also control CO2 if it needs to be controlled by tanks or by burners. We can add coolers and extra heaters, and we can also go modular. So you can, if your facility is small first and you have a modular design in structure, you can grow the equipment while growing the structures, which is an advantage for people who doesn't want to start really big. Thanks.
I was just going to point out that we've worked with growers in the past who Colorado is a dry place where we live. It's predominantly dry. 2 years ago, we had a really wet May. It rained almost the whole month. Most growers were not set up for that at all. They were using vented greenhouses, and almost all of them lost crops if they were in late flowering in May. All lost to powdery mildew. And so what a controlled environment does off the bat with your initial design is really more than anything an ideal growing environment, but more so it's insurance that regardless of what's happening outside in the environment, you're going to have the ability to control the interior environment and not lose a crop. Some of those guys who lost crops might have lost $500,000 in product in that month, which might have paid for or half paid for the upgraded build out that they could have or should have done in the beginning. And so this is really an insurance policy, and especially when you're planning for your business, to know that you're not going to have a catastrophic failure because you're ready to handle any environmental thing that might come your way is a huge benefit for your operational success.
Also, collecting the data enables you to go to that date of point where you are in trouble to show that your conditions were actually not causing the problem. Because you can go to, if the dispensaries, which you see now in California, this is happening a lot, millions of dollars worth of products, they're getting recalled. So the growers can actually fight for their rights if they have the data in hand. They can go to any day, any time, and show the conditions that was growing. This is also super important for growers to be able to show the conditions of the climate, which is collecting data. So I think it's quite important also to show the energy levels that that's getting used. We had a facility in Florida, and using a HVAC system from somebody else and getting all these technologies together, at the end, the energy costs and the energy levels go really, really high. And using efficient technologies helps a lot with the end quality of the product and how you get to that quality.
Much of this goes back to initial planning. And this, the more you plan in the early stages, the better off you're going to be with the success of your project. What we see is in Colorado, indoor growers with average HVAC controls are growing for 30 to 50 cents a gram. A lot of our clients in the greenhouse with a well-designed HVAC system that's designed for operational efficiency are growing for as little as 2 cents a gram in the greenhouses. Part of that's because we don't use light very much. Part of that is because we have optimal conditions, because sunlight along with good environmental controls. So the plants are totally out yielding what you might normally see in an indoor grow. Mm-hmm. And all of those things bring down operational costs. So as wholesale prices drop over time, which they inevitably will, the greenhouse growers have a guaranteed product at a low operational cost that they know is going to keep them in the game longer. Whereas the guys who started indoor, which is maybe a thing that's happening in Germany and how it had to start in Colorado at the time, the indoor growers are either going out of business or transitioning to a more controlled, better engineered, designed greenhouse situation.
The initial investment sometimes can be higher in let's say ETFE we actually recommend ETFE a lot in the Middle East. It's actually a really, really good product. It's better than glass, and but it's a little bit more expensive, if I'm not mistaken. And it's up to us to actually show why the initial investments are sometimes can be higher and really important in the long term. I think this is what the growers and people who wants to get into this business should really think about and plan it. You were saying planning is super important. You should really know on how advanced you want to go, because as in innovation goes, it's not stopping. Every day there is something new coming out, and it's up to the growers if they want to adapt that or not. So I beg you, you use the innovations, you know. What else can we?
Well, I was just going to say,
what do you want to?
more and more now. Early on in Colorado, these were smaller growers who were just trying to get into the game for as little money as possible and then survive. And more now, what we see is much more organized business groups who aren't as frightened to spend the money, but still concerned. But it's way more established now. And so we see people who are way more willing to make the investment when we show them what the outcome is and what the possibilities are with the right building and the right mechanical
Which is,
equipment.
would you agree if I said which is mostly fully sealed houses gives the best product? I would say in most of the time, or
Yep.
fully controlled greenhouses, you know, as in the exhaust, as in everything.
So yeah, and we have if you know the story of Oregon right now, Oregon has a huge amount of outdoor or maybe greenhouse grown cannabis that is okay quality, that is just sitting there, like they say 5 years worth of product.
Yeah, more weed than anybody. They have like 4 times the amount of weed. If everybody in Oregon was an everyday pot smoker, they would still have too much weed.
Right. So
I've offered to go up to help.
But the idea there is growing okay cannabis at this point is really not a business plan at all. It's a way to fail. And so those people who did not make the investment in the way they're growing are paying for it really like with everything they have right now. Whereas the clients that we have who've spent the most money, where people say this is actually, you're going way overboard, it's ridiculous what you're doing, are getting 30 to 50% more wholesale per pound for their product because it's such high quality, and when it comes out of the lab results, it shows that it's such high quality.
That's great. That's fantastic. Thank you both very much. Do we have time for some questions?
Thanks.
Do you have a question or two? Anyone have a question? Everyone has used all of their words today. Well, thank you so very much, Jim and Josh. Let's hear it for Jim and Josh. That was very enlightening, very educational.